Member for Davenport.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank the honourable colleague, my honourable colleague, for that question. I will tell you that, as what I said during my speech, the only election that, to me, only election date that's in my mind is an election date that is 4 years after the last election, which is October 2023. I think that Canadians want us to govern, and I think that is what we're trying to do. And this bill is a responsible thing to do in the unlikely event that an election is actually called during a pandemic. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Statements by members. Déclaration des députés. L'honorable député de Mississauga East Cooksville.
Madam Speaker, yesterday was Mother's Day. Considering COVID-19 has disproportionately affected women of all ages, be it our frontline workers, PSWs, caregivers, and in particularly those that have young children, these are the brave women, mothers, grandmothers that have not stopped working throughout this pandemic. Here's a sincere, heartfelt thank you on our collective behalf. My mother has played an important role in my life. Immigrating to Canada, our family has seen firsthand how my mother had to juggle between work and home, taking care of two young children, my sister and myself. When my twins were born, I witnessed the same with my loving wife, a working mother. This past year has been a challenging one. The least we could do for our mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers is to be supportive of them, to appreciate them for everything that they do, to tell them it's okay to not be okay, to be there when they need us most, in person or virtually. We will get through this together. Thank you to every mom that is watching this today. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Madam Speaker, our farmers are the backbone of our community and the engine of our economies. They are the hard-working men and women who go out in the searing heat and the bitter cold to put food on our tables and clothes on our back. During the pandemic or at any time in recent history, Canadians have not had to worry about their food supply. Canadians benefit from some of the highest quality and least expensive and safest food in the world because of our wonderful, hardworking farmers. While we were all battling the pandemic, our farmers did not pause their work. They did not take a break. They kept planting their fields, feeding their livestock, and getting their products to market. Today, I would like to recognize the tremendous and continuous efforts of our agricultural workers.
The honourable member for Markham-Stouffville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I wish to recognize the life of Nasser Ahmed. A caring husband, father, and son, Nasser immigrated to Canada from India with his family in 2002. Upon arriving, he continued a long and successful professional career in telecommunications, most recently serving as the head of business development and cybersecurity at Nokia. A founding member and Secretary General of the Islamic Society of Markham, Masjid Darul Iman, Nasser had a passion for serving the community. He was dedicated to educating and empowering youth in Markham and was a leader who mobilized the community during times of humanitarian concern. One of the kindest people I've met, Nasser was always a gracious host when I visited the mosque. I, along with so many, was saddened to hear of his recent passing. Nasser was just 49. I send my sincere condolences to Nasser's family and loved ones during this extremely difficult time.
L'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Jean.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My community was shaken this weekend by the disappearance of one of their most precious heritage buildings built on the shores of Lac-Saint-Jean. Inspired in part by the National Assembly, this building had been in place for 110 years. Many firefighters assembled from surrounding areas. These men and women courageously tried to fight the flames and protect all of the buildings around it. I would like to thank them because they were real heroes. Their dedication should inspire us all. I sincerely hope that the courthouse will be rebuilt very soon. To all of those in the community, know that I am with you during this difficult time. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Bourassa.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, on Mother's Day, I sent a surprise to Bourassa County. We sent 150 cakes and candies and flowers to be distributed to seniors' residences and to seniors' clubs. The cakes were made by students from the Calixa-La-Vallée Hotel School in the riding. They recently won an international award at the Academy of Chocolate Awards in London 2020. These coffee socials were exclusively for the wonderful moms in the riding, and they were organized in strict compliance with public health measures. It allowed seniors to escape their loneliness and celebrate all those who once cradled us. Happy Mother's Day.
L'honorable député de Beauce.
Monsieur le Président, j'aimerais...
Mr. Speaker, I wish to pay tribute to the memory of a builder from the Beauce region who passed away recently. Mr. Donald Brochu, founder of Agrimarché, passed away on April 29th at the age of 83. When he joined the Brochu Group with his brothers in the 1960s, he helped the company prosper and become a major player in the Canadian agri-food sector. The company is now in its third generation with Jean-Pierre, Guylaine, and Patrice. Having known him since 1981, I remember a man who was easy to talk to, always interested in others, always wanting to hear from those he met. During his career, he was also involved in social, sports, and educational activities. I also remember a man who in 1982, during the creation of the Chaudière Basin exhibition, had one idea in mind: to bring the agri-food sector closer to the public. I would like to offer my condolences to his family and friends. We will remember and miss this philanthropist, this leader, and this exceptional businessman. I wish Mr. Brochu a good rest. Thank you.
The honourable member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Mr. Speaker, Polish Canadians across the country are watching with alarm the mistreatment of the Polish minority in Belarus by the authoritarian regime of President Alexander Lukashenko. The arbitrary detention of Angelika Boris, chairwoman of the Union of Poles in Belarus, is but one example of the widespread human rights violations being perpetrated. In response to mass protests after the fraudulent presidential elections last August, thousands of demonstrators, human rights activists, and journalists have been arrested. Canada was the first country to impose sanctions against Belarus and provide over $3 million in support to pro-democratic organizations. Canada stands in solidarity with the Belarusian people. We reaffirm our unequivocal condemnation of the gross human rights violations in Belarus. We will continue to hold Belarusian authorities to account and call for an end to the systematic persecution of minorities and peaceful democratic movements, and call for an immediate cessation of all violence, including the use of torture.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has been an extremely challenging time for everyone, but arguably no one has experienced more challenges and been more personally impacted than those on the front lines of our healthcare system. The tireless efforts of healthcare workers to keep our community members safe, cared for, and healthy is what has given many Canadians hope as we navigate through this pandemic. Without their service and being there for us each and every day, we wouldn't be where we are, nor able to finish the fight against COVID-19. This week is National Nursing Week, and I want to send a big thank you to our nurses in Whitby, throughout Durham region, and all across Canada for the incredible work they do. We know you must be physically and emotionally exhausted at this point, and we hope that as you dig deeper to continue on and care for our loved ones, that you know how much we believe in you and appreciate you for your truly courageous efforts. I hope all members of this House will join me in thanking our nurses.
The honourable member for Abbotsford.
Lights, camera, Abbotsford. Mr. Speaker, let me set the scene. I'm blessed to live in beautiful Abbotsford, British Columbia. And now it appears the film industry has taken notice of our city. Nestled between majestic Mount Baker and the mighty Fraser River, our city in the country has become one of the premier film destinations in Canada. Hallmark and Netflix have taken notice and profiled our community on movie screens around the world. Last year, 63 productions were safely filmed in venues like Claiborne Village, Mount Lehman, Matsqui Village, Mill Lake, and historic downtown Abbotsford. The economic impact is in the millions. These spin-offs are thanks to a community effort to expand our economic base beyond agriculture and manufacturing. The people of Abbotsford are resilient, and in the midst of a pandemic, we've adapted. Our future looks bright, including our place in the movies. So, Mr. Speaker, that's a wrap.
L'honorable député d'Alfred Pelland.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui débute.
Mr. Speaker, today marks the beginning of Nursing Week. This is an opportunity to highlight the contribution and remarkable work done by nursing staff. In Laval, in the Cité de la Santé Hospital, there are gems who work tirelessly to provide care to the members of our community who need it. If the staff was working miracles on a daily basis before the pandemic, they've been doing even more since the crisis started. Without regard for their own health, they've been on the front lines of the crisis. They continue to be guardian angels as vaccines are rolled out in Laval. To all the nursing staff in Laval, thank you for your daily dedication to our community. Thank you for the essential work you do every day. And thank you for continuing to watch over those of us who are sick again today.
Portneuf, Jacques Cartier.
Monsieur le Président, jeudi soir.
Mr. Speaker, last Thursday, Canada won its first gold medal since 2013 at the World Under-18 Hockey Championship held in the United States, specifically in Texas. It's important to highlight the performance of the Canadian team because it did not lose any of its 7 games during the tournament. This shows a good attack, but also strong defense. One Quebecer was part of this team, a young hockey player from Cap Santé in Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. I want to congratulate Guillaume Richard for his exceptional contribution. This young defenseman was able to show all his talent and potential throughout the entire tournament. Finishing the tournament with a +14 rating, Guillaume was a pillar for his team's defense. Guillaume, you're a role model for the young athletes of the region, and you make Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier and all of Quebec shine on our national team. You can be proud of yourself because we're all very proud of you. Congratulations.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, this month of May marks Jewish Heritage Month. Jews throughout Canada's history have made extraordinary contributions to the fabric of our nation and have helped make it the greatest country in the world, whether it be the Bronfman family and their contributions in business and philanthropy, in politics and government with former Minister of Finance Joe Oliver, in the entertainment world with the likes of none other than Captain James T. Kirk, Captain of the Starship Enterprise William Shatner, or for the younger crowd out there, Canada's own superstar, Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter Drake. The Canadian Jewish community has made significant contributions to the growth and prosperity of Canada while overcoming tremendous obstacles. This month, let us remember, celebrate, and educate future generations about the inspirational role that Jewish Canadians have played and continue to play in communities across the country. On behalf of our entire Conservative team, I want to wish a happy Jewish Heritage Month to my fellow Jewish Canadians across the country.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
I rise to bring to Parliament's attention an unconscionable attack on workers occurring in British Columbia. 2 weeks ago, an employer group representing the hospitality industry served lockout notice on some 1,200 workers in 14 communities around the province. This has been accompanied by mass firings of hundreds of workers at the Hilton, Metrotown, and Pacific Gateway hotels, 2/3 of whom are women. These employers are cynically using the pandemic to eliminate loyal employees with decades of service and to roll back wages and workplace conditions. This despicable tactic also constitutes an assault on racialized Canadians, as many of these workers are people of color. The Prime Minister promised Canadians a feminist recovery, but his government continues to operate quarantine services at a hotel behind picket lines who is attacking women. I call on this government to cease operations immediately at facilities affected by job action and suspend all federal funds to these employers until they reverse their disgraceful behavior.
L'honorable député de Montarville.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai le plaisir au nom
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Bloc Québécois, I would like to congratulate the Scottish National Party and its leader, Nicola Sturgeon, for their resounding election victory last Thursday. The Scottish nation clearly expressed itself in favour of a new referendum on its future within the United Kingdom. Considering that the Scots were opposed to Brexit in 2016, a referendum for Scottish independence could take a completely different turn and end in victory. I hope all the people of Scotland will have their will heard and that democracy will not be extinguished by Boris Johnson's government, which is at the moment opposed to it. I want to reiterate that the right of peoples to self-determination is a fundamental principle to which every democracy worthy of the name must adhere. I therefore call on all parties in this House to reiterate their unconditional support for this value, to assure Scotland that Canada will respect its choice in a friendly manner, no matter what it is.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, point of order, Mr. Speaker. We're not getting translation.
Okay. We seem to have a problem with translation. Est-ce que nous avons...
Do we have...
Okay, alors, est-ce que vous pouvez m'entendre?
Can you hear me now? Translation is happening? Okay, perfect. Maybe what we'll do, if the Honourable Member from Montarville agrees, to be heard in both official languages, I will ask him to repeat his statement. It is my pleasure, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of the Bloc Québécois, it's my pleasure to congratulate the Scottish National Party and its leader, Nicola Sturgeon, for their resounding election victory last Thursday. The majority of the Scottish nation clearly expressed itself in favour of a new referendum on its future in the United Kingdom. Considering that the Scots were strongly opposed to Brexit in 2016, a referendum for independence could lead to a victory. I hope that the people of Scotland will have their will heard and that democracy will not be undermined by Boris Johnson's government, which at the moment is opposed to them expressing themselves. I wish to reiterate the right of peoples to self-determination. It's a fundamental principle. I invite all parties in this House to reiterate their unconditional support for this principle to assure Scotland that Canada will respect its choice regardless of what it is.
Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
In a riding that's been decided by less than 50 votes in recent years, the member for Winnipeg North was found guilty of breaking elections law for running illegal ads on Election Day, influencing the vote of some 35,000 people on their way to the polls. It's completely inappropriate for this same member to be the parliamentary secretary in charge of changing Canada's elections laws for all candidates in 338 ridings across the country when he can't be bothered to follow our existing laws. Canadians expect our elections to be the global standard for unquestionable integrity. How can this government be trusted to ensure the integrity of our elections and have the best interest for Canadians at the front of mind when they will recklessly break current laws for their own benefit? Canadians deserve better. These Liberals break the law whenever they think they can get away with it because they believe they are above the rules that the rest of us follow. A Conservative government will bring back ethics and good governance to Parliament Hill and restore Canadians' confidence in their public institutions.
The Honourable Member for Etobicoke North.
Mr. Speaker, today I recognize Quentin Versetti, an award-winning Black artist, storyteller, and educator who was born and raised in Etobicoke North. His work addresses issues of decolonization, immigration, and representation, and has been featured in countries including Australia, Germany, Haiti, Mexico, and Peru. Quentin recently won the 2020 Joshua Glover Public Art Competition. His sculpture commemorates Joshua Glover, who arrived in Canada via the Underground Railway and who helped propel the abolitionist movement. In Quentin's words, his memorial marks a moment of allyship, advocacy, and activism to improve the treatment of human beings that we can all continue to strive for. I ask members of this House to join me in recognizing Quentin Versetti, who works hard to inspire hearts and minds and pave the way for up-and-coming Black artists.
Oral questions. Question orale. The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
I
think it's going too far to say we didn't know it was a Me Too complaint. Between the Prime Minister's office and PCO, we knew it was of a sexual nature. Who said that? That's what a Liberal senior government official told the Toronto Star this weekend. The Prime Minister's office is telling Parliament something very different from what they told the Toronto Star. Why did Katie Telford mislead the committee about knowing whether she was dealing with a sexual misconduct complaint against General Vance?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear that we did not know the nature of the specifics of the case when the information was brought forward, but we are absolutely committed to making sure that we create the culture change that's needed in the Canadian Armed Forces, making sure that we have an absolute inclusive working environment that's harassment-free for all women in the Canadian Armed Forces, and that's a goal that we will continue to work towards. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
Not believable. For weeks, the Minister of National Defence has refused to answer about whether he knew the complaint was sexual misconduct. The former ombudsman has said repeatedly that he told the minister it was. The committee has correspondence from the minister's chief of staff saying it was sexual harassment, and correspondence on which the minister is copied saying it was sexual harassment. Can the minister stop this shameful denial and just admit that he knowingly sat on sexual misconduct complaints against General Vance for 3 years?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to make it very clear that the natures of the specifics of the details were not provided, but we acted immediately on this information. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the very next day, public officials who are nonpartisan contacted Mr. Walburn to take the appropriate action. We know that we have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, but we will get it done. Thank you.
Well, Deputy Leader of the Opposition.
No one trusts that minister, and no one is trusting this government or believing a word they say. Telford told committee that the Prime Minister signed off on extending Vance's term and giving him a pay raise, yet she said she didn't tell him about the allegations all that time. The Defence Minister knew. The Chief of Staff knew. The Clerk of the Privy Council knew. Yet somehow Vance spent 3 more years as Canada's top soldier. My question is actually for the Deputy Prime Minister. How did this so-called feminist government allow that to happen?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we said, we have a lot more work to do when it comes to supporting our women in the Canadian Armed Forces. The work that we have done when it comes to Bill C-77, passing us Bill C-77, the Sexual Misconduct Response Center, we have taken important steps, but clearly we have a lot more work to do to making sure that we have an absolute harassment-free workplace in the Canadian Armed Forces. That's the work that Madame Marbour is doing, the work that Justice Fish, when it comes to military justice reforms, will also present. We have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker. We are going to get this done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff testified at committee. We could have expected solid evidence, but that wasn't the case. There was nothing of the sort. No one believes Katie Telford, and a close source to the government tells the Toronto Star that it's going too far to say they didn't know it was a Me Too complaint. That's someone who's near the government. So, on March 2nd, 2018, there was an email that makes it clear in black and white that they knew it was a sexual harassment case. Can the Deputy Prime Minister of this government defend the indefensible, the Honourable Minister?
Mr. Speaker, no specific details were provided, but we acted immediately on this information where, as I stated earlier, nonpartisan public officials contacted Mr. Walburn to take the appropriate action. We know that we have a lot more work to do to making sure that we create the confidence for women to be able to come forward, and that's the work that's currently ongoing to get this done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. How can we believe this government? Because it's changed its version of events 4 times. Last Friday, the Chief of Staff had the chance to tell Canadians the truth with tangible proof, but she wasn't able to do so. So I'm asking the question to the Deputy Prime Minister of this government. How can the Deputy Prime Minister of Canada defend the indefensible?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as we stated before, no details were provided, specific details were provided in this case, but action was immediately taken. A process was followed, the exact same process that the former government had followed when information was brought to them, Mr. Speaker. We know that there's a lot more work to do. This is the reasons why we have appointed Madam Our Board to give us recommendations on the way forwards when it comes to the independence of the complaints process, so that women can feel confident to come forward. Harassment-free workplace that it's have zero tolerance for any type of misconduct is our goal and something that we are committed to. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, it's extremely disturbing that the government is imposing a gag order to change the election rules in the midst of a pandemic. The government tabled Bill C-19 4 months ago, and 4 months ago we could have started debating it. But now, only today, it becomes important for the government. Suddenly, the government has no time to discuss or to think about it. It wants to impose its election rules with a gag order. Mr. Speaker, it hasn't been urgent for 4 months. How come this justifies a gag order? Is it because the government wants to start an election in the middle of a pandemic? The Honourable Minister.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
We have a point of order. The Honourable Member for Middlesex, London Middlesex, Elgin.
No problem. Once again, we're having an interpretation problem.
Okay.
We could not.
Did you get any of the? Did the Honourable Member hear any of the question?
I heard the entire question in French.
I'm sorry, only in French. Okay. Peut-être je vais demander au.
So perhaps I'll ask the member to repeat his question. Can you hear me in English? Is it being translated? Yes. The Honourable Member for La Prairie, please repeat your question. Mr. Speaker, it's extremely disturbing that the government is imposing a gag order to change its election rules in the midst of a pandemic. The government tabled Bill C-19 4 months ago, and we could have been debating it for 4 months. But only today, this bill becomes important for the government. Suddenly, the government has no time to discuss it or even to think about it. It wants to impose its election rules with a gag order, no less. If it wasn't urgent for 4 months, Mr. Speaker, what justifies suddenly having a gag order? Is it because the government wants to call a pandemic election? The Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague from La Prairie for the question. Mr. Speaker, my colleague knows full well that the government remains fully focused on the necessary help for Canadians during this pandemic. And this is why, since the beginning of the pandemic, we took the time necessary at the House to bring forth measures that would provide direct support to Canadians. We also believe that the Chief Electoral Officer, when he spoke to the... I have to interrupt the Honourable Minister. Apparently, the interpretation is not working. We're having issues today. Can you hear me in English? No. So there is... it's only in one language?
Home by the looks of it, or online.
So can you hear the translation online? Now, yes? So we'll try once again. I'll ask the ministers to start his answer again, and I hope that things will be better. Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I promise my answer will be just as good the second time, like it was for the question. Mr. Speaker, my colleague from the Bloc knows full well that the government remains fully focused on providing support to Canadians that is necessary to protect them during this pandemic. However, we also think it is good to respond to the Chief Electoral Officer's report, which asked us to amend the Elections Act temporarily so that we could ensure election could happen during a pandemic, and that is what we are doing. The Honourable Member for La Prairie, the best way to have a pandemic election is not to have one, but by imposing a gag order, the government's announcing that not only does it not want to go to an election, but they want it to happen as soon as possible. No one thinks it's a good idea to have a pandemic election, and no one wants the rules for a pandemic election to be imposed by the government without discussion and without regard for public health. Does the government realize that the health of voters is at stake? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, yes, we do realize this, and that is why we're asking parliamentarians to vote or look at Bill C-19 at committee. A minority government cannot impose legislation, and I think my colleague has experience at the Parliament and should know that we need the consensus of other political parties to move forward. Mr. Speaker, it is my colleague who wants to trigger an election. He is continuing to vote against the government and showing no confidence. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff asked Friday what more could she have done to help the victims of sexual misconduct in the military. What more could the Liberals have done? Seriously? The Deschamps report outlining the unhealthy and toxic culture in the military has been known since 2015. 2015. And what have the Liberals done since? Nothing. Yes, they commissioned a new study. But why do they decide to table the Deschamps report and to turn their backs on the victims in the military? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government takes the allegations of sexual misconduct very seriously, and no one should feel unsafe at work. And that's why we have passed Bill C-77, the Declaration of Victims' Rights, that puts victims at the core of the military justice system, which reviews unfounded cases. Created the Sexual Misconduct Response Center, which provides confidential 24/7 support to CAF members anywhere in the world. Mr. Speaker, we know that we have a lot more work to do, and that's the work that we are going to get done. We are going to listen to our survivors, and we are going to make sure that we have a zero tolerance policy that's going to be in force, and making sure that we give confidence to the women in the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for London Fanshawe.
Women are still waiting for the Liberals to take action to address the devastating issue of the sexualized culture within the armed forces. This government sat on the Deschamps report for 6 years. They could have implemented those recommendations. They could have enforced meaningful actions, improving the ability of women and men to serve equally. But they continue to take no responsibility on this issue, and now they have proposed another report because they are forced to do so by public and political pressure. Will this government finally take real action and immediate action to help service women and men rather than announcing yet another report?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we have been taking action since the time that we formed government. As I stated, we have passed Bill C-77, the Declaration of Victims' Rights, that puts the victims first at the core of the military justice system. The creation of the Sexual Misconduct Response Center, the Path to Dignity and Respect, and we put into place response and support coordination program for CAF members who experience sexual misconduct. A lot of work has been done, Mr. Speaker, but at the end of the day, more work needs to move forward to making sure that our women in the Canadian Armed Forces have the confidence to be able to come forward when misconduct is done. But our goal at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, is to be able to prevent this from happening in the first place, and we will get this done. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
When the Heritage Minister first started coming under fire for Bill C-10, he insisted that YouTube content would not be censored. But just yesterday, the truth slipped out. Uh-oh. In an interview, he said, quote, "At some point, the CRTC will be asked to put a threshold," end quote. Wait a minute. With one breath, the minister says YouTube users have nothing to worry about. But in his next breath, he says, quote, "At some point, they will be censored." Why does the minister want to dictate to individual YouTubers what they can and cannot post?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It was clear from the beginning that what we want to focus on is two things. One, for social media platforms to financially contribute to our cultural industry, and two, make our Canadian artists discoverable on platforms such as YouTube. Today, I was relieved to see that the Conservatives are finally listening to the cultural sector and stop their 2 weeks long unnecessary filibustering. We continue to stand with our artists and creators. We look forward to the resumption of the committee's work very soon. The cultural sector is behind us and in support of this bill, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lethbridge.
It's good that the minister is sticking to his talking points instead of trying to go on his own. That results in blunders. Yesterday, the minister admitted that if you're a successful YouTuber with, quote, a lot of viewers, and you make revenue from your content, oh my gosh, heaven forbid, the eye of the government will be on you. There are so many incredible entrepreneurs and artists and creators who have found a way to connect with other individuals and generate a bit of income from it. Why is this minister launching an attack on them?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And let me be clear, the bill is not about what Canadians can or can't post online. It's very explicit in this regard. Helping Canadian artists and creators is at the heart of what C10 does. And what it does is actually give them more opportunities to meet their own artists and creators. And it does so by making sure big streaming companies pay their fair share to our culture and ensure Canadian artists are discoverable on these platforms. Our creator can't afford to wait any longer, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Lethbridge.
Let me interpret that. What he's saying is that information will be censored and certain videos will be moved to the top, others will be moved to the bottom, and the government will dictate which is which. Over the weekend, the minister had yet another blunder. Every time he goes out to, quote, clarify the intent of C10, he makes things worse. Within 24 hours, he had to issue 2 clarifications and an apology. It's obvious this minister doesn't know what's in his very own bill. It's so bad that just moments ago, the parliamentary secretary had to do the press conference instead of the minister. So why does the government continue to try to defend the indefensible?
Honourable Minister. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the Conservative members truly care about freedom of speech, then they will let our democracy continue its work freely. This bill won't regulate the internet or what people choose to post online or even view online. Not at all. Individual activities are explicitly exempt from all 3 requirements above. Freedom of speech is not negotiable for our government. It is explicitly protected under this Act and in our Charter of Rights and Freedom. We will continue to abide by it. We will let the committee pursue its work, and if that means a charter review that needs to go on, we were happy to do so.
The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, this is crazy. In an interview over the weekend, the Minister of Heritage quoted the wrong section of his own bill, confirmed that the government would regulate social media for users with large followings, and mentioned that the regulations would not be done by the government, but by the CRTC. The minister confirmed that the Liberals want to attack freedom of expression, and every time he opens his mouth, he makes his bill even more vague and incomprehensible. Canadians won't be fooled. How can the minister explain his words over the weekend? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my honourable colleague for giving me this opportunity to remind him that all those, there are many organizations across the country that support C10. There's a professor at University of Montreal, and there is a coalition as well and the National Alliance of Musicians, as well as other book distributors in French, the civil society, and other authors and associations. The honourable member for Richmond-Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, we're all tired of hearing the minister say that because we want to protect freedom of speech, that the Conservatives are anti-culture. The minister is playing partisan politics since the beginning. If we're in this mess right now, he is the only one responsible for it because he's flip-flopped on protecting social media users. Can the minister show a minimum of honesty and admit to cultural stakeholders that if it wasn't for his failure to protect freedom of expression, we wouldn't be in this mess today? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Allow me to quote the Director General of Music Directors, who says, "The Conservatives are using fake news, fear, and parliamentary filibustering to prevent this bill from being adopted to the detriment of our cultural future. This is odious, and the Conservative Party of Canada is against Quebec culture. We need C10." So I'd like to remind my honourable colleague, I'm not the one saying that. These are people from this sector that are saying it. The honourable member for Richmond Athabasca. While the minister quotes other people, I will quote him. He said, this law has to apply to people who are broadcasters who act like broadcasters. So if you have a YouTube channel and you have millions of views and you're receiving revenue from it, we'll ask the CRC to put some limits on it. The next day, he says the opposite. The reality is that in this current bill, amended by the Liberals themselves, any influencer, artist, politician, or social media user could be regulated by the CRTC. The minister is attacking freedom of expression. Why? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I would like to continue the quote from Mr. Jérôme Perrot, and I quote him. He's very disappointed that you and the Conservative Party chose partisanship to the detriment of our Quebec culture and Canadian culture. C10 is not even finished being studied, but the freedom of expression is not at stake. All other parties, except yours, well, they're just playing petty politics. The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the PM's office has known since 2018 that allegations have been going around about the General Vance. We know it was a sexual misconduct issue, and they're saying that the Chief of Staff didn't know the nature of these allegations. Mr. Speaker, but I don't believe her. Well, let's pretend I do. So the Prime Minister's chief advisor has known since 2018 that a major complaint of unknown nature is going around against the General. What has the Prime Minister done for 3 years to get to the bottom of this complaint? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated earlier that we did not know the nature of the specifics of the details of the information that was brought forward, but action was taken immediately, Mr. Speaker, and given to nonpartisan public officials to take the appropriate action. No politician should ever be involved in investigation, Mr. Speaker. We take incidents like this very seriously. This is why we're working extremely hard to make the culture change, not only inside the Canadian Armed Forces, but wider in government as well, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, I'm quoting the Prime Minister Chief of Staff. I treated the complaint as if it were the most serious, even though I didn't know what it was. End of quote. In short, she knew there were serious allegations against General Vance, but she could have spoken to the Prime Minister or the Minister of Defence. And this wasn't the first time there had been sexual allegations against General Vance, and even in the midst of Operation Honour against misconduct in the military. In short, she did nothing to protect the victims. She preferred to protect the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defence, right? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to any type of allegation that brought forward, no politician should ever, or not only politicians, but political staff should be involved in any type of investigation. The information was sent forward immediately to the Privy Council officials who are nonpartisan to look at the complaint. We know that we have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and we are going to get it done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's office knew that there were serious allegations against the highest-ranking military officer and turned a blind eye. This is irresponsible and unworthy of an office of the Prime Minister. But what's even worse is that the Minister of Defence knew, beyond any doubt, that sexual misconduct was involved, and he also turned a blind eye. And this is unforgivable. Since he didn't take the allegations seriously when he said he didn't know what they were, will the Prime Minister take them seriously today and fire the Defence Minister? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, the nature and specifics of the details were not provided. But, Mr. Speaker, action was taken immediately. Advice was given to making sure that Mr. Walburn contacted the Privy Council office. In this case here, the very next day, we made sure that the non-partisan public officials from the Privy Council office contacted Mr. Walburn. Action was taken immediately, Mr. Speaker. Politicians or political staff should never be involved in any type of investigation, Mr. Speaker. We know that we have a lot more work to do to rebuild the confidence with the survivors who are coming forward, and we will get it done. Thank you.
The honourable member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, to be clear, Mr. Speaker, we know that there was never an investigation even started. Katie Telford is complicit in the Vance cover-up when she decided not to tell the Prime Minister about the serious allegations against the former Chief of Defence. She confirmed at Defence Committee that she allowed the Prime Minister to personally sign off on General Vance's pay bonuses and extended his contract without properly briefing him on the sexual misconduct allegations against the very man entrusted with Operation Honour. Katie Telford willfully withheld critical information, and by doing so, she failed to protect the women and men of the armed forces from sexual misconduct. It's clear the Prime Minister can no longer trust her. Why hasn't he fired her?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when information was brought forward, it was immediately acted upon. It was given to non-partisan public officials at the Privy Council to take the appropriate action, because no political staff or politicians should ever be involved with an investigation. It is the exact same process, Mr. Speaker, that the member opposite's government also had followed when allegations were also brought forward. We know that we have a lot more work to do, Mr. Speaker, and I ask member opposite to be able to work together to be able to find the right solution so that we can rebuild the confidence for our survivors. We have a lot more work to do. We know that by working together, we can get this done. Thank you.
The honourable for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Fact is, we investigated and they turned a blind eye. On Friday, Katie Telford claimed she knew the Vance allegations did not pose a safety risk, while at the same time denying that she knew anything about the nature of the allegations. If she didn't know the nature of the allegations, there's no way she possibly could have been confident that there were no safety concerns. In fact, Gary Walburn, the former military ombudsman, only told the Minister of Defence that he had a complaint of inappropriate sexual behavior against Vance. So who assured Katie Telford not to worry about the safety of the complainant? Was it Michael Warnick, Janine Sherman, or was it the Minister of Defence himself?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite stated they investigated, but they also still appointed General Vance at that time for Chief of Defence Staff. But when it came to the specifics of the case, Mr. Speaker, we did not receive the details, but we immediately forwarded to non-partisan public officials at the Privy Council office to take the appropriate action, Mr. Speaker. Action was taken, but clearly more work that needs to happen here. We are right now currently working to regain the confidence of our survivors. We have been listening to our survivors. The work that Lieutenant General Carrion will be doing will be absolutely instrumental in this case. Thank you.
The honourable member for Charlebourg, Haut-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, when you're a feminist, it has to mean something. When the Prime Minister said he's the biggest feminist in the world, we know it's not true. You have to take action when a woman tables a complaint with the Ombudsman. The Minister of Defence turns a blind eye and didn't want to hear it. The next day, we see an email from the Privy Council office from 2018 that confirms that there was sexual harassment in that file. What other details do the Prime Minister need to take action and show that he's a real feminist? The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, anytime, if ever, information is brought forward, immediate action is taken. As I stated before a number of times, when information was brought forward, immediate action was taken. It was provided to the non-partisan public officials at the Privy Council office to take the appropriate action, because no politician or political staff should ever be involved in any type of investigation, something that the previous government also followed the same process. But nonetheless, Mr. Speaker, we know that we have a lot more work to do. We can get this done. I look forward to hearing the recommendations from the NDDN committee on this matter. As parliamentarians, by working together, we can rebuild the confidence for the women in the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver, Kingsway.
Workers at the Pacific Gateway Hotel in British Columbia are on strike after management fired 100 long-service employees. Most of these union members are women, many people of color. This hotel and others are cynically using the pandemic to gain economic advantage. But instead of standing up for workers, the federal government is using this hotel for quarantine while its management is assaulting its staff. This is not the action of a government who is truly feminist, committed to working people, or fighting discrimination. Will the Liberals stop giving money to an employer who is attacking workers, women, and marginalized communities?
Minister.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And I agree that workers everywhere need to be protected, especially as they face the front lines with such determination and courage. Protecting the health and safety of Canadians is, of course, our top priority, and keeping travelers and staff at designated quarantine facilities safe requires training in infection prevention and control practices. I understand that the employer is having conversations with the workers, and as this process is underway in a provincial workplace, I can't comment further.
The honourable member for New Westminster, Burnaby.
Well, that was no answer at all, Mr. Speaker. And here's yet another case of the Liberal free ride for the ultra-rich. We learned last weekend that billions of dollars in public funds through the wage subsidy that should have gone to protecting jobs and workers instead went to dividend payments, stock buybacks, and big executive bonuses. Now, Liberals have gone after regular Canadians, the victims of CERB fraud, demanding the victims pay for the criminals. It's shameful. Will the Liberals make the ultra-rich, those companies and CEOs who misuse these funds, pay the money back?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member for his question and for his concern for working Canadians. And so let me take this opportunity to point out to him that the wage subsidy has protected the jobs of 621,000 workers in his province of British Columbia. Across Canada, more than 5.3 million jobs have been supported by the wage subsidy. And Mr. Speaker, the CRA website makes clear that the wage subsidy can only be claimed for employee remuneration. It cannot be used for other purposes, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Ottawa South.
Mr. Speaker, we recently tabled the most small business-friendly budget in Canadian history. Last Friday, our government made an announcement to significantly increase rapid testing for businesses and their workers across Canada. Could the Minister of Small Business, Export Promotion and International Trade please tell us how this will both protect the health and safety of Canadians and benefit our small businesses?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the honourable member for Ottawa South for that important question. As we continue the fight of COVID-19...
Interrupt the Honourable Minister for a moment. We're having a hard time hearing her. Maybe try it now.
Is that better?
It's better. Go ahead. Start from the top.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the honourable member for Ottawa South for that important question. As we continue to fight COVID-19, rapid screening is an important tool to protect Canadians' health and safety and help our businesses of all sizes operate safely and to reopen quickly. Last Friday, we announced that we are making rapid screening even more accessible, building on the Stay Safe initiative, working collaboratively with local chambers and SMEs in order to protect Canadians and support workers and businesses to operate safely and to recover strongly from this pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Les raffineries de Lévis.
The Montreal and Lévis refineries depend on Line 5 to provide half of the oil for gas for Canadians. Thousands of jobs depend on the existence of Line 5. But the governor of Michigan said that she wants to close it down in 2 days. This government hasn't done anything to protect it. What will this government do in the next 48 hours to protect these jobs? The Honourable Minister.
Line 5 is a critical piece of energy infrastructure, vital to North American energy security. We are working on the diplomatic level. We are working on the political level. We are working on the legal level to defend it. Last week, the House had an emergency debate. There was no daylight between parties, but members for Banff Airdrie and Sarnia-Lambton suggested that the Leader of the Opposition actually spoke with the Governor of Michigan on this issue. And in the spirit of a Team Canada approach to this, and this is important, will the honourable member perhaps share with this House what the Governor said? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Well, it's no surprise that this minister and this prime minister can't get the governor on the phone themselves, because of course they've done nothing but fail in Canada-U.S. relations for the last 5 years. They failed to get a Buy America exemption like Harper did under Obama. They failed to resolve the softwood lumber dispute as Harper did under George W. Bush. They've had 3 presidents to work with, and yet no concessions whatsoever. The U.S. president will not even intervene right now to help save this vital energy link on which thousands of jobs in our entire energy system in central Canada depends. Why should we have any confidence that they'll do better this time after their failures the last times?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll take that as a non-answer. You know, at a time when producers and workers in Western Canada are concerned about getting their products to market, when consumers are worried about the price of gas and how that will affect the heat in their homes, what have the Conservatives been doing? Fundraising off threats to shut down Line 5. Fundraising for their election campaign. It is insulting to oil and gas workers and insulting to Canadians who just want to heat their homes. While Conservatives are focused on improving their bank account, we are standing up for Line 5 with a full Team Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today is May 10th. In 2 days, on May 12th, this government will fail if the governor of Michigan closes down Line 5. When is this government going to actually recognize that this is something serious they have to deal with? And when are they going to talk to the governor of Michigan and get this problem solved, and also with the President of the United States? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Line 5 isn't just an issue for producers in Alberta or consumers in Ontario. It supports the entire country. Thousands of jobs depend on it. Thousands of homes depend on it for heating. We are working closely with Minister Savage in Alberta. I was just on the phone with her. Minister Eyre in Saskatchewan as well. We've been talking with Minister Rickford in Ontario, with Sarnia Mayor Mike Bradley, and I've been speaking with Minister Julien in Quebec. This is a full court press by Team Canada. While the Conservatives are more focused on using this to fundraise, we are standing up for oil and gas workers and defending Line 5. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Centre.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Natural Resources is leaving no stone unturned, he says. He's looking at all his options. But that's what he tells us. But, Mr. Speaker, there are 48 hours left before 30,000 jobs and millions of people who depend on them are affected. Fuel shortages, food distribution impacts, essential goods, and personal protective equipment not being manufactured. That is what awaits us if this government doesn't have a contingency plan in place. Where's the Prime Minister while his minister is turning over stones and not getting it done?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can assure this House we are looking at all our options. We will leave no stone unturned in defending Canada's energy security. We will work at the political level, at the diplomatic level, at the legal level. We are ready to intervene at precisely the right moment. We are standing up for energy workers, we are standing up for energy consumers, and we are standing up for energy security. People will not be left out in the cold. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'Honorable Député de Drummond.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Now, since the beginning of study of C10, we've been told that only social networks would be affected by the government amendments, not users. But now, this weekend, the minister seems to have said that users with many subscribers might be affected. Now, a user is a user, regardless of the number of subscribers. The government shouldn't regulate people who just happen to have a lot of likes on their pages. So can the minister finally be clear? Does he intend to regulate or to protect the freedom of expression of users on social networks? And hopefully this time he can get the answer right. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we want to concentrate on two things. We want to ensure that social networks contribute to our cultural industries, and secondly, we want to make Canadian artists discoverable on platforms like YouTube. I was pleased today to see that the Conservative Party is finally listening to the cultural sector. I would be disappointed to see the Bloc Québécois stop listening to the Quebec artistic sector, and I hope that we will be able to resume work at committee and study Bill C10 so that we can get this important bill passed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, I am not at all afraid to compare my record on C10 and defending the Quebec cultural industry when comparing it to the minister's record. I'm not at all concerned about that. And this bill is critical for Quebec culture and our artists. We can resume work on this bill as soon as the Ministers of Justice and Heritage appear to reassure concerned Canadians. Will this minister commit to do his share and unblock work on this bill? What we need is for him and his colleague, the Minister of Justice, to appear at the committee on Friday to reassure Quebecers about this critical issue of freedom of expression on social media. The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to appear before the Heritage Committee, as I've done each time that has been requested. As my honourable colleague knows very well, Section 2.3 of the bill specifies that Bill C-10 must respect journalistic freedom, freedom of expression, and all other freedoms under the Charter. I'm surprised that he has forgotten that, since he seems to have studied the bill closely. The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillé, Kamouraska-Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, Dubreton meets in my riding. A company with many employees may see their activities diminish or be entirely forfeit to the Americans if Canada can't bring in a sufficient number of temporary foreign workers. There are more than 8,000 positions to be filled in this sector in Quebec. Now, the Minister of Immigration could, under Regulation 205A, could temporarily exempt these essential businesses from the 10% maximum threshold or from LMIAs if that goes in the national interest. Will he do that?
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start by thanking my colleague for a constructive discussion on this issue. Temporary foreign workers are essential for our businesses. That is why we have facilitated the arrival of essential temporary foreign workers throughout the pandemic. Last year, we welcomed more than 85% of agricultural temporary foreign workers. And this year, we are going to welcome even more. I will continue to work with my colleague.
Member for Lambton, Kent, Middlesex.
Speaker, 2 days. That's all the time that's left before the Line 5 pipeline is set to shut down. My constituents in Lambton, Kent, Middlesex, and farmers across southwestern Ontario are worried. Farmers depend upon propane supplied by Line 5. Where and how will they get their propane to heat their barns and greenhouses and dry their grains? Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister get on the phone with President Biden and stress the urgency and importance of keeping Line 5 open? There are less than 48 hours left.
Honourable Minister.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. I can assure this House, I can assure the honourable member, we are looking at all our options. We will leave no stone unturned in defending Canada's energy security. We are looking at the political level, we are working at the diplomatic level, we are working at the legal level, and we will be ready to intervene at precisely the right moment. We will stand up for energy workers and for energy consumers in this country, and we are standing up for Canada's energy security. People will not be left out in the cold. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon, Grasswood.
Mr. Speaker, for weeks, the Liberals have continued their attack on freedom of speech online. As it currently stands, Bill C-10 would grant the CRTC the ability to regulate content that is posted online by individuals who aren't even considered broadcasters. This isn't disinformation. These are serious concerns that have been raised by former CRTC chairs and highly respected academics. Will the minister agree to stringent and in-depth protections for user-generated content in C-10?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to quote members of the Coalition for the Diversity of Cultural Expression. Bill C-10 is in no way infringes on the freedom of expression, nor does it represent censorship of the internet. The cultural sector is very clear, Mr. Speaker. They want this bill. Hundreds of millions of dollars for our creators, for our artists, for our musicians is at stake. We're asking the committee to accelerate the adoption, the completion of its work on Bill C-10 so it can be brought back to the House. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Vimy.
The Honourable Member for Vimy. Mr. Speaker, the vaccination campaign is in full swing. Millions of vaccines are arriving in Canada every week. Starting on Friday, Quebec residents over 18 will be able to receive their first dose. As more and more Canadians are becoming eligible for a vaccine, it is crucial that we continue to encourage them to get vaccinated when it's the right time to do so. Can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this House what the federal... I'm just going to interrupt for a moment. I believe there is an interpretation issue once again. Can members hear me in English? Can members hear me in English now? Apparently, it's working for members in the House, but not online. So, a member in the House can hear me in English? Members in the House can hear me in English? But people online can't hear. I will continue talking. I will continue speaking, and I hope that members will be able to hear. Oh, interpretation has started once again. It seems to be an online issue. I would ask the member for Vimy to start over with her questions so we can all hear. The Honourable Member for Vimy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The vaccination campaign is in full swing. Millions of vaccines are arriving in Canada every week. Starting on Friday, residents of Quebec over 18 will be able to get their first dose. More and more Canadians are eligible for a vaccine. And since more and more Canadians are eligible, we need to continue to encourage them to get vaccinated when it's the right time to do so. Can the Honourable Minister of Health tell this House what the federal government is doing to fight vaccine hesitancy? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with my colleague. Vaccines are an important tool to fight COVID-19. In order to help Canadians access trustworthy information about vaccines, we have announced $64 million. That was announced in February to assist with this issue. All vaccines approved in Canada are safe and effective against COVID-19. What I would say to Canadians is, I encourage you to get vaccinated. Vaccines will protect you and your loved ones. Thank you.
For Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, today media reports state Canadian Forces members saw video evidence of war crimes committed by the very Iraqi soldiers they were ordered to train in Op Impact. Our troops, my constituents, immediately reported seeing videos of prisoners being tortured, raped, and murdered to their superiors. They first reported what they saw in September of 2018, yet there's no proof these reports were ever acted upon despite follow-ups as recently as last year. Did the minister know about this video evidence of war crimes?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is contributing to the greater peace and security in the world and remains a strong partner in the fight against Daesh. We are committed to meeting our obligations under international and domestic law. Our government takes allegations of this nature extremely seriously, and we're actively looking into this troubling allegations because we just heard of it now. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Niagara Falls.
Mr. Speaker, this government announced the highly affected sector credit availability program in late November and waited 2 months to open applications. According to the Tourism Industry Association of Ontario, only 4% of their members have taken up HASCAP. Businesses have told us increased debt loads, higher interest rates, and continued issues with the criteria are the reasons for the program's failure. With an unemployment rate of 13% in the tourism sector in March, why is this government failing those hardest hit businesses and workers who desperately need support to survive through this pandemic?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, of course, we understand that the tourism sector is undergoing great difficulties, and that's exactly why we've been there. We've been there to support them through the wage subsidy, through the rent relief program, through the CEBA accounts, through also the different support we got through the regional development agencies, and also through the HASCAP program. At the same time, we know we have to do more, and that's exactly why we're doing more. And in the budget that the Minister of Finance tabled a couple of weeks ago, we have $1 billion more to support our tourism operators, hoteliers, and the great people, workers that are actually making sure that this sector will be able to be relaunched in the couple.
The honourable member for Kootenay, Columbia.
Mr. Speaker, the Vaccine Injury Support Program was first announced in December, yet it is still not up and running. In fact, a simple search shows a call for applications for a third-party administrator remains open. The minister's own office has confirmed the program isn't ready. They know the support would eventually be needed, which is why it was announced back in December. Mr. Speaker, I already have constituents contacting my office about the program that need help. Why isn't it up and running?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way we've provided for Canadians, including the launch of a vaccine injury prevention program. I would encourage the member opposite, if he does have constituents that are looking for answers about the program, to ensure that he communicate with my office, and we'll make sure that they get the information they need. I will also say, Mr. Speaker, that any claims will be retroactive to the beginning of our immunization program. We'll continue to be there for Canadians in the extremely rare event of a serious side effect.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, while the pandemic has affected all Canadians, many Blacks, Indigenous, and racialized groups have been at the front lines of COVID-19 pandemic, filling roles in healthcare, personal support work, and other essential services. These groups have disproportionately faced the impacts of COVID-19 and may be facing worsening mental health outcome as a result. As last week was the Mental Health Awareness Week, can the Minister of Health update us on how the government is working to improve access to mental health services, particularly for racialized and vulnerable Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank the member for his ongoing and consistent advocacy for people who struggle with mental health issues and for excellent care no matter where you live. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2021 proposes to provide $100 million to support projects for innovative mental health interventions for populations that have been disproportionately affected by COVID-19, including healthcare workers, frontline workers, youth, seniors, Indigenous people, and racialized and Black Canadians. Mr. Speaker, the conversations I had with stakeholders from coast to coast to coast last week expressed great gratitude to our finance minister, to our government for including mental health so profoundly in the budget. And we look forward to working with them all to ensure that every Canadian gets support.
The honourable member for Windsor West.
Cross-border vaccination deals have been made by Manitoba with North Dakota, Alberta with Montana, and Ontario is negotiating with Michigan. The federal government has completely failed to help on this, like they did with delivering vaccines in time to avoid a third wave. For months, I've been requesting the establishment of a border task force to ensure businesses and families are part of developing a safe border plan. Now the U.S. Senate Majority Leader has engaged Congress in demanding a border plan. When will the Prime Minister finally do his job and establish a safe border task force instead of him and a select few making it up on the fly?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way, we've worked very closely with our United States counterparts to protect the health and safety of Canadians and indeed our American cousins and neighbors. I just want to speak a little bit about vaccines, though, Mr. Speaker. It's a great day. Over 18.4 million vaccines have been shipped to provinces and territories to date. As of May 7th, 16 million administered across the country, Mr. Speaker. We can see the finish line, and I want to thank all Canadians who are stepping up to get vaccinated when their turn arrives. Mr. Speaker, this is great news for Canada. This is great news for the United States, and we'll continue to work closely with our American cousins and neighbors.
Honourable member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we use GDP as a measure of our economy, the emergency response to an oil tanker spill or a major car accident counts as economic growth. When we use GDP as the measure of our economy, an old-growth forest sequestering carbon and supporting biodiversity has no value until it is converted to lumber. Instead of measuring the accumulation of wealth, a well-being economy measures success through the health of people and the planet. Will the government stop using GDP and measure our success by well-being?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since the beginning, we have been focusing on Canadians' quality of life because we know it is the right thing to do for Canadians. Going beyond GDP is also an approach adopted by other major economies, including Scotland and New Zealand. As the recent OECD survey on Canada observed, policymakers should consider how policy development and implementation can be improved to help Canada achieve resilient and healthy post-COVID economy and society, specifically an approach that more explicitly incorporates aspects such as work-life balance, job quality, social capital trust, and resources for future well-being, as well as for distributional considerations. That's great advice from the OECD, Mr. Speaker, and we are and will continue to put Canadians' quality of life at the center of our decisions.
And that's all the time we have today for oral questions. Tabling of documents, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36, bracket 8A, I have the honor to table in both official languages the government's responses to 31 petitions. These returns will be tabled in an electronic format.
Very good. Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers. The Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs and Associate Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More than 118,000 Canadians and Newfoundlanders have given their lives in service to Canada. We've lost them in the muddy trenches of Flanders, on the shores of the Normandy coast, along the streets of Canadair, and while training right here in Canada.